Who do you think you are? Do you really think they don't know? How long do you think you can keep up with this? It's a matter of time before they figure it out. You're an imposter. Hello, my lovelies. So happy to have you back. Sandy Salgado here. Thank you for tuning in with me for another episode, another week of unedited, unfiltered, raw, cold, hard truth. Truth that will confront you, yes, but it's also truth that will liberate you and that will empower you and set you free. Today, we are going to be talking about the imposter syndrome. It is something that over 70% of the population suffers from. And I'll actually read you the definition of what this means. But I don't want to give you just facts. I also want to share with you experiences, because facts you can just look up on your own and figure things out on your own. I'm going to be sharing with you my personal experience with imposter syndrome that I've suffered from going all the way back to elementary school. I want to share with you things that you can relate to. But let me give you the actual definition of imposter syndrome for those of you that do not know what it is or have never heard the term. And it says, imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon, fraud syndrome, or the imposter experience. It is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments, and has a persistent, internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. How many of you, maybe you can relate? Maybe I'm the only one. No, over 70% of the population actually suffers from this or has suffered from this at one point or another. But how many of you can relate or can remember go back to a situation where perhaps you developed a new friendship, or you were hired in a new position on a new job, or you were given a promotion? And though logically you knew that you were prepared enough, or you were excited even, deep down inside, there were thoughts inside of you that told you that you were not adequate enough, that you were not good enough, that they perhaps gave you the position because they felt sorry for you. Or what about those thoughts that you don't belong here? It's just a matter of time before they figure that out. Have you ever been there? I remember the first time that I experienced this syndrome, that I have recollection of it. I go all the way back to elementary school, where you're new and you have classmates and you're trying to figure out who you are, and you're trying to make friends along the way, thinking, oh my goodness, am I really worthy enough? Why is this kid talking to me? Why is this person who is obviously talented and skilled and popular, why are they talking to me? Do they not know who I am? Do they not see that I'm a failure, or that I'm a fraud, or that I don't really have any skills or talents? Just feeling like you're not good enough, like you're not prepared enough, like you're not worthy enough. For example, I remember in elementary school for lunch, having new kids surround you in lunch. And I don't know where you're from or how your lunch setting was, but for us it was extremely long tables that were in the auditorium or in the lunchroom, and just having kids come up to me and ask me if they could sit with me, and just I remember those thoughts so clearly. Do they know who I am? Are they really talking to me? Do they feel sorry for me? That was a big thing. Do they feel sorry for me? And that is why they're talking to me. Or when they would ask me to be their reading buddies, or when they would ask me to group up with them for a project, I remember just having those thoughts. When are they going to find out that I'm not really as smart as they are? When are they going to figure out that I'm a fraud, that I'm a joke, that I'm a fake, that I don't really belong here? When are they going to stop feeling sorry for me and start telling me the truth? Now, it doesn't stop there. These feelings, these insecurities followed me all throughout high school. I remember getting into a new school with people that I didn't know and trying to make friends and trying to figure out who was who and where did I belong. I remember trying to be brave and trying to break out of my comfort zone. And the first couple of times I was like, okay, maybe this will work this time around. But immediately after trying and perhaps failing here and there a couple of times, I would revert back to my comfort zone, and I would revert back to those familiar thoughts of insecurity of, what are you doing? Do you really think that you're good enough? Who are you to step up? Who are you to be a part of this project? They're going to find out that you're not good enough. They're going to see right through you. You don't have the experience. And just thinking about these thoughts and going back to those moments, it makes it that much more real. The syndrome is what I'm referring to, because to be in that position of, okay, trying to figure out who I am and where I belong. And I don't know about you, but high school was a very difficult time in my life because I really genuinely didn't think or feel that I fit in anywhere. And then one day, suddenly, when I'd finally had enough, when I was sick and tired of throwing myself pity parties, and I was finally sick and tired of being my own punching bag, I decided that I was going to give myself the opportunity of experiencing life like everybody else around me was experiencing it. And so I dove into entrepreneurship. I got certified. I started doing research to become a coach and to become a public speaker, because it's always been my passion. I've just, again, this imposter syndrome had prevented me my entire life from really exposing who I really was. It was keeping me in the shadows. And so I became an entrepreneur. I remember doing the research and going to seminars and preparing myself. And no matter how much research I did, no matter how many certifications I got under my belt as far as the coaching went, no matter how many speaking engagements I was booked for, no matter how many successful stories I had through coaching clients, those voices never left. They were always there in the back of my head. You're not good enough. Who are you, and with what experience are you telling these people what to do and how to prosper in life when you're struggling the way that you are? Because to me, having these thoughts, having these voices in the back of my head telling me this was a failure. It was a constant reminder that I wasn't where I was supposed to be, that I hadn't accomplished anything. Even though I had the track record that I did with all the coaches and with all the clients that I've had in the past and with all the speaking engagements that I had booked, it was still not enough, because I still heard the voices in the back of my head. You're not good enough. It's only a matter of time before they see right through you. You don't belong here. Who do you think you are with the very little education that you have? Because I wasn't somebody that went to college. I've obviously prepared myself since with seminars, with coaching certificates. I kept diving deeper and deeper and deeper, trying to make myself believe that I was worthy. And I would spend countless hours and weeks and months just preparing myself, only to come to terms that I really wasn't good enough. There was also a battle going on inside of my head, because I had recently become a Christian woman. I had recently given my life to God. And day in and day out, you were being told how much you were loved, how important you were, how capable you were, because God created you that way, and how worthy you were. And inside my head, I did not believe one of these things about me. So it was a very, very difficult time in my life. And I remember I started doing research, because I could not possibly be the only person, the only human on this earth experiencing these things and having these limiting thoughts and these limiting beliefs about myself. And I remember I was with a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, and I was sharing with her, just trying to bounce ideas off of her and picking her brain. And I remember sharing with her all of these voices that and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I actually heard the voices. I don't want you to think that I'm crazy. But it was just those thoughts about myself, those constant negative nagging thoughts that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't worthy enough, that I was a fraud, that I was an actual imposter, not worthy of the life that I was living. Because in my entire life, I had been limited. My entire life, I was trying to figure out who I was, and suddenly with entrepreneurship and finally having a reason to live and to look forward to and to be able to help people while I'm living my dream, it was a time where I just did not feel worthy, and I didn't feel like if I deserved to be in the place that I was. And so I'm bouncing these ideas off of my friends with my friend. And she mentions for the first time the imposter syndrome. She suggested that I look it up because she'd heard it before and it sounded like something that I would be able to relate to and understand. So immediately after I get home, I remember going on YouTube and pulling up information about it. And immediately all these thoughts just start making sense. And I send myself into this rabbit hole of hours and hours of just regurgitating this information and dissecting this information and all that came attached to this title. And even though I finally had the answers that I needed to make sense of what was happening to me, and it was in some way relieving, it was also extremely overwhelming. Because immediately after figuring this out, I thought to myself, okay, how do I fix myself? How, or even is it fixable? I remember the more research that I did, the more questions arose, the more questions that I had, and it just sent me down this insane rabbit hole again of just diving into how to try to fix myself. So a couple of the things that I'm going to share with you are things that have worked for me personally. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know where you are. I don't know what you're battling with, but if it's anything along the lines or the way of what I've shared with you, then these things that I'm going to share with you are going to help you in battling or getting rid of or getting as far away as possible from this imposter syndrome. Number one is become familiar with the syndrome, with imposter syndrome. Remember that you cannot fix what you are not willing to confront. In order for you to demolish these thoughts or get rid of them or overpower them or gain control over them, you have to learn what you're up against and what it truly means to experience the syndrome, to experience these feelings of feeling like an imposter. Number two is prepping yourself daily with empowering reminders of your actual genuine accomplishments. It's probably my favorite one. I start my day off with prayer, obviously, every single day. I don't leave my house without prayer, but I also take some time every single day to remind myself, to prepare myself for battle, so to say. As cliche as that sounds, you have to prepare yourself for battle. You don't know what you're going to be up against, what you're going to face after you leave your home. So remember to remind yourself of who you are, what you've accomplished, and what you're capable of before leaving your house every single day. That sets the tone for the rest of the day. Number three is being okay with speaking about where you are, about what you're experiencing. Being okay with being in a vulnerable position. I know it's really popular for people to say, oh, vulnerability is good for the soul and it's a good thing to practice vulnerability. But when do you really find yourself being extremely honest and genuine and open about how you feel? Learn to be okay with who you are, with where you are, so that you can learn how to properly handle your emotions. And which leads me to my last and final point. having somebody to talk to about those emotions, having someone, a confidant, someone who is trustworthy, someone who's not going to go divulge your information or your insecurities to the world, a true genuine friend that you can trust in, to be able to open up about such feelings, to be able to I guess the most important thing and the reason to have these friends and these people in your life is for them to remind you of who you are. When you feel like you're being pulled back into that pool, into that river of doubt, of self-sabotage, you have to have somebody in your life to be able to remind you of, hey, you are worthy. You're not here by accident. You're not here because people feel sorry for you. I remember, and here and there, I still battle with that. Obviously, I've been able to take control over these thoughts and put a stop to them. But one of the biggest things was, they're my friends because they feel sorry for me. I booked this gig because they feel sorry for me. This person hired me as a coach because they had pity over me. And so to have somebody, not to stroke your ego, because there's a very big difference between somebody giving you positive affirmations and reassurance of who you are, and then somebody just feeding you false, egotistical things that you've not really accomplished. So there's a big difference between positive, true, genuine affirmations and egotistical or just stroking your ego. So it's very, very, very important to have these confidants, these friends, these people around you that will pull you back. And I'll close off with a quote from Marianne Williamson, just to bring this message full circle. It's a quote that I think that if you've paid attention and if you've been able to relate to this message, I think that it'll bring the entirety of this message full circle. Again, it's a quote by Marianne Williamson, and it's one of my favorites. And it reads like this. It says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant and gorgeous and talented and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same." When I read this, it reminds me that these fears, that these voices that I have constantly trying to sabotage me, that they're unfounded. And so I guess to close this message, I just want to remind you that you truly are worthy, that you truly are brilliant, that you are important, and that you are capable. So regardless of where you are, regardless of who you are, remind yourself daily of these truths. I do hope that this message served its purpose and that it spoke to you on some level. That is all that I have for you today. I do hope to see you again soon. Until next time, God bless each and every one of you. Ciao.